All right, so obviously I'm the youth pastor over at Faith Community Church. The name of our youth group is called Rebel. Stands for Reaching Everyone by Equipping Leaders. I just brought a few of the student leaders. If you guys want to stand up, go ahead, stand up, bro. Don't put the finger in there. There you go. It's Justice Green. Won't stand up. Janessa and Liberty. It's Liberty Green. And then it's my wife, Silver. Go ahead. Floss. There you go, girl. You go, girl. Some of you actually might know me from Western Media. I actually worked there, too. Who knows me from West? Raise your hand. Big brothers, big sisters, too. Yeah, that's right. Yep, I also came by to high school a couple of times before. The best part was that when I first walked in here, the first thing I heard, a girl turned around. She said, "Hey, you're the one who hit me in the face with a dodgeball." That was definitely me. It was me. I just let it fly. I don't care who I hit. I just cock back and I don't aim, so... Yeah, I thought I was in trouble at first, but she shook it off like a G. Good job. So a little more about me. What's another thing? My wife reminds me about stuff. What's something else about me? I am in school. I'm still going to school to get my master's right now, so pray for me. Pray for me, because it's a lot. I have to write a lot of papers, and I don't like it. Oh, also, some of you might know me from... I had a business a while back called Cool Life Living. I used to come to like high schools and middle schools and do motivational speaking. Appreciate that, show love. I used to do like motivational speaking and everything. And actually, I'll give you a quick spiel if you guys want that. That's cool? All right. It goes, Superman once said, "This S on my chest may just be an S on your planet, but on my planet it stands for hope." Now, when I heard this, I made a connection. Because normally I'm wearing a shirt that says Cool Life Living, and those words on my chest may just be words to you, but to me, it stands for hope. Boom. To me, it stands for hope. To that young lady who's thinking about ending that beautiful song called Life because she doesn't feel accepted anymore, it stands for hope. To the young man who gets picked on because he'd rather stay inside and draw rather than go outside and raise hell, it stands for hope. Hope that the persecution and the trials that we go through every day because of who we are and what we believe in is not in vain. See, our clothing was the statement, and our message is still the mission. Be your own cool and uniqueness without exemption. The trick is to guard your heart and protect it, even if that means being rejected. Be the change, they say. Challenge accepted. A lot of people brush this off because they never heard the message. A clothing company that aims to prevent bullying and suicide through motivational speaking and action. They even told us it was impossible. But I stand here today because we did make it happen. 2 years we sowed seed in dry land. That's when everyone thought we were done. Cool Life Living. The best is yet to come. Now, that young lady I was talking about who wanted to end her life because she didn't feel accepted anymore, that was my sister. And that young boy who would rather do art instead of going out and pretty much doing a lot of bad stuff, that was me. We didn't have a lot growing up, but we always had hope. And that's what I come here to bring you today. It's hope. I remember when I was your age, like what it was like to be in a youth group. I loved going to see my youth pastor. All we used to do was just sit in the room. It wasn't even a lot of us. It was maybe like 8 of us. And we would just do the same thing every week. We would chill, talk about God, play games, and then I was out. But that youth group was like a safe haven to me because they didn't realize it, but at the time I was going through so much. Surrounded by so many quote-unquote friends that I never invited to the youth group because if I even told them about it, they would have looked at me differently. But in the back of my mind, I wish I could have stayed there my entire life. I wish that I could have been adopted by my church. Not to say that my parents were bad. My parents loved me. They did the best that they could to provide for me. But sometimes what they provided wasn't enough. There was this one time where I remember it like it was yesterday. We didn't have electricity in the house. And I would come home, no lights. Like, we take for granted so many small things. Like, I couldn't just go in the fridge and grab some water. Like, like I missed the small things like the buzzing of the refrigerator or being able to turn on the TV. I'm not asking anybody to raise your hand, but if you've ever experienced it, it's the most depressing thing to come home to a cold house. And you can't wait for school to start the next day because there's nothing to do. Nothing to do. And I remember, I grabbed my sketchbook. And I just began to draw. And once I got home, the sun was still up. But as the sun started going down, I inched closer and closer to the window because that was my only source of light. It was my only source of light. And I just kept drawing. And then next thing you know, the sun was down. And I just remember tears just kept dropping on my paper. And I just remember asking God, you want me to serve you. You want me to believe in you, but yet I live like this. I would go to school and they would talk about all the new shows on TV and they would have all the new clothes and everything. And it was pretty obvious that they weren't living for God, but yet I keep going to church and I want to believe in you, but why is my life like this? It was at that moment that a street light outside my window came on. And it just shined right through the window on a piece of paper. And as I look back on it now, it was God who said this, and he reminded me, he said, it won't always be like this. I picked up my pencil and began to draw. So I'm here to actually just bring you hope in a way of just showing you that it won't always be like this. Because there was a group of people in the Bible called the Israelites. And there came a point where they went to Egypt because there was a famine in the land. Pretty much there was no water and nothing. Pretty much they had no food, no water, anything like that. So they stayed in Egypt. And it was actually a blessing at the time that they can spend these years in Egypt while all this was going on. But then a blessing turned into a curse. 430 years went by, and they find themselves slaves to a king that they didn't even know. They kept asking God, why? If we're your chosen people, then why? What is this? What type of promised land is this? If you're so great, what type of promised land is this? Why? We might as well just go serve the Egyptian gods. Because they're obviously living lavish and living cool. Why are we suffering so much? We break our backs to build pyramids that we would never go inside. They were stuck in a dark place. Similar to me. In a dark place. Feeling like there's no hope. Life sucks. Why live? I find it funny that you can find this in the book of Exodus, the very first chapter. And I find it amazing how, if you didn't know this, the Bible is written by men inspired by the Holy Spirit. All right, so I just love how God opens up the book of Exodus. Because Exodus, the Bible is written in Hebrew and Greek. Exodus being written in Hebrew, when you translate the word Exodus, it says exodos, which means the exit. So this book is about God's people leaving Egypt. They're exiting Egypt. So I find it amazing how it says, these are the names of the son of Israel, that is Jacob, who moved to Egypt with their father, each with his family. And it begins to list off the families. But if you might miss this first part. It says, these are the sons of Jacob who went with their father, Jacob. I find it amazing how at the beginning of the book of Exodus, God reminds us of his promise. Because there was a time where Jacob wrestled with God. It says he wrestled with an angel of the Lord. And he would not let God go. He said, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. So God popped his hip out. He said, cool. Your name is now Israel. Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars. The promise. Jacob, the sons of Jacob. So he reminds us of a promise. I take this as God saying it won't always be like this. You won't always be in this dark place. But what if I told you that the most beautiful things, the most valuable things in this world are formed in a dark place? For example, a diamond starts out as a piece of coal under pressure, constant pressure, and then boom, you have something that people pay thousands, sometimes even millions of dollars for. What's another one? A butterfly starts off as a caterpillar, it crawls inside of a cocoon, inside of a dark place for a certain amount of time, and out pops the most beautiful thing. A baby. A baby is inside of its mother's womb for 9 months, inside of a dark place. But this baby, once it reaches 9 months, it has eyes, ears, a nose, mouth, hands, feet. But why? Why does it need eyes and ears inside of its mother's womb? It's not like it needs to hear or see anything. Why does it need hands? It can't really grab anything. It doesn't need feet because it's not walking. I believe that the frustration that you've been experiencing is actually because you know you were created for more. The reason you keep asking God, why me? Why do I keep going through this? Why am I in this dark place? Is because you know that there's some type of potential inside of you. When the mother gives birth to the baby, it needs feet to walk. It needs a nose to smell, eyes to see, ears to hear. But inside of that womb, it doesn't need it. I think the confusion comes from, at your age, is that you don't know your worth. You don't know your worth. And the reason I say this is because, I'm just going to keep it real with you. We got young women twerking. Come on. I mean, you can laugh about it. Like, it's like you got young women twerking. Like you have young men who think that going around and being with other females is a game. That being with so many different women, that having so many women under your belt makes you a man. But if you actually knew your worth, if you actually knew how God created you and why he created you, you wouldn't even touch that stuff. There's this parable. A parable pretty much is, it was the way Jesus told a story. He told a story in a certain way because our minds are so limited that if he told us the exact truth, we wouldn't even be able to comprehend it. So they just kept following Jesus around, and he was like, okay, well, the kingdom of heaven is like this. And he would break it down to a child's way of thinking. And there's a parable in Matthew, and it says, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for a fine pearl. And when he found one, a valuable pearl, he sold everything he had and bought it. So, like, what does this mean? You know, like, how's the kingdom of heaven like a merchant searching for a fine pearl? I didn't know when I first read it, to be honest with you. But a merchant. Since the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant, the merchant is God. So it's saying that God went searching for a fine pearl. Why does God need a pearl? You know, like that, it just doesn't make sense. And it says when God found this pearl, he sold everything he had for it and bought it. Why would a God who created heaven and earth, who created everything that he has comes from within him, what does he sell? You know, like what and how much is a pearl to God? So if everything that God has and everything that he owns and everything that he created came from within him, for him to sell everything, that would mean that he sold himself. Can you imagine God stepping down from the throne and said, I'll buy it? So pretty much, God sold himself into slavery. And it says that when he sold everything he had He came back and he bought it. He bought a pearl for his life. But what is that pearl? And how valuable is it that God would sell himself? He would step down from his throne, sell himself. And by selling himself, I'm talking about Jesus Christ. John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son so that whoever believes in him would have everlasting life and not perish." It's kind of what it says. So pretty much he sent his son, sold himself into slavery to us, so that pearl would be us. You are that pearl. And when I say he sold himself into slavery, we nailed him on a cross. Our sins is what he bore on that cross. So the price of a pearl would be his blood. The price of the pearl would be his life. The price that he paid for you would be him. A pearl. A piece of sand goes inside of a clam for a long time, inside of a dark place, and out pops a pearl. You've been wondering why you've been struggling. You've been wondering, I came across some students over at my job who cut themselves, who think about committing suicide. I find myself pulling them to the side and letting them know their worth. But what type of sense does it make for God to punish me because he loves me? It's not punishment. Remember, it took a lot of pressure to make a diamond. It's making you stronger. We don't struggle just to struggle. We struggle to get stronger. It's like lifting weights. For those of you who do you just lift air, or do you get a bar and put weights on it? That resistance is what builds muscle, because God has a plan for you. He does. There's in the book of Corinthians, it's 2 Corinthians. There's this guy named Paul. Paul was just a flat-out cold. He was like one of my favorite characters in the Bible. And this guy, he built churches, but before then, he used to break them down and take out Christians. God turned them around, and huge praise break. But Paul was he was talking to the church of Corinth, and there was this group of men called super apostles. And these super apostles, they would come to this church and they would say, "Why do you listen to this guy?" They would boast in themselves. They would say, "We are this, we are that." And they would just brag. They were so prideful. And Paul wrote them a letter. Paul wrote them a letter. And he said, "We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but we are not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be shown through our bodies." So pretty much Paul was saying this: what have they been through? Where does their credibility come from? Yes, they look good, they smell good, they talk good, but tell me, what have they been through in their past that is a testimony of what Jesus has done in their lives? Paul, it was one time where Paul got beat. This guy, he pretty much got beat for preaching the gospel. And they drug him outside the city. He dusted off his clothing and walked back in and started preaching the gospel again. We have this image inside of our head that Christians are the softest people in the world. That's not true at all. Be honest with you, we're crazy. We are. I mean, what other gang do you know that pretty much they die for something they won't see, that they don't see? We'll walk around in the group, run up on some people and just say, "Hey, have you heard about Jesus?" And when they brush us off, we move to the next person and say, "Hey, have you heard about Jesus?" It even talks about in the Bible how they took some of the Christians in Rome, they took the Christians and they threw them in pits with lions. And that's all they tell you. But if you actually do your homework, it talks about how these Christians would train really hard. They would lift weights. They would practice. They would learn how to fight because they stood up for what they believed in. They were in there slaying lions and slaying gladiators because of a man that they have never met and only heard of. Where are those Christians today? Because we get so comfortable in our seats and we listen to the word, but we never apply it to our lives. And when the opportunity arises for us to tell our friends about Christ, we back down because it's not cool. What will they say about me? And I'll be honest with you, when I was your age, I'm guilty of it. That's why I'm standing here to encourage you. Now is the time to start building your resume. Now is the time to start boasting in God. Now is the time to live a set-apart life. Now is the time to walk through the dark place, knowing who you serve, holding on to a promise that God gave you. Because where are the Christians that have died for what they believe in? I'm not asking for you guys to go out and jump in front of a car, by the way. Like I'm just saying, like, where's your heart at? Like, just think in your mind, like, if I were put in a situation to tell a friend about Christ, even if they made fun of me, what would I do? How would I react? Or has that opportunity already came? Like, you guys need to realize that this is not just somewhere just to go have fun. And Kurt, you're doing an awesome job, by the way. I just want to let you know, like, this is an awesome youth ministry. And it is a place to have fun, but that's not what it's all about. Every single time that you come into this building, Kurt is sowing a seed into your life to encourage you. He is preparing you for when you grow up, because life doesn't get easier. When you do it with God, it's pretty cool. You know, like, I would admit, like, I didn't come to God until like 3 years ago. And life has been challenging, but it has been a huge adventure. What are you willing to give up for God? I mean, think about it. He gave up his life for you. He lowered himself from a God to a man so that we could kill him. Name one story where the hero dies for the villain. I'll wait. Name one story. There is no other story like that where he's dying for the exact people that are putting nails through his wrists and his feet, a crown of thorns on his head, ripping his back to shreds, spitting in his face, gambling for his clothes, talking about him. They made him carry a cross for a long distance and didn't even try to help. Like, to be honest with you, we don't deserve forgiveness, but yet he gave it to us. He did it for us. Like, are you willing to put your reputation on the line for God? That's the big one right there. Actually, that's it right there. Are you willing to put your reputation on the line for God? Let's say you're a popular kid in your school. Is your popularity hindering you from building God's reputation? I went to CMU, and my wife refers to me as, before we got married, we hated each other. So I'm just going to let you know, that's probably how you're going to find your husband or wife. You'll hate each other first. But like we were just talking about how we knew of each other, and she referred to me as the popular kid on a college campus. It was pretty cool. Like, it was. But it came to a point where I had to say yes to God. And everyone I knew abandoned me. All of my friends don't understand what I'm doing. My closest friend won't even text me back when I call him. Even though he claims to be a Christian, he doesn't like when I talk to him about it. So are you willing to put your reputation on the line? Are you willing to be available for God? That Cool Life Living business, it was cool. But it came a point where God said, okay, you know what, I want you to take everything that you learned from business and apply it to a youth ministry. This is right after I said 2 years of sowing seed in dry land, just when you thought we were done. The best was yet to come. And God said, no, drop that. That was a true test of my faith, because that's something I built from the ground up. So I'm not here to remind you, I'm here to let you know that while you're in this dark place, like, if you're hurting yourself, if you're thinking about it, it won't always be like this. It won't. And you want to know what my credibility is? You're looking at a ex-pothead / drunk / drug dealer / sex addict / shroom popper / a lot of things. Yeah. So what have you been through? Where's your credibility come from? What is God doing in your life right now that you keep telling him to take away? Because it's that exact thing. Like the exact thing that you're in while you're in a dark place is what prepares you for your future. When I was young, I was broke. Now I manage money quite well because I was in a dark place. So actually, I want to give you all an opportunity right now. It's to say yes to God. I want to give you an opportunity to put your reputation on the line. I challenge you to put your reputation on the line. Okay, can we get some of the leaders up here? I don't know if you do this or not, but like look at you, girl. You go, girl. Look at you. So I want to give you an opportunity because that's what I'm called to do. I can't force you to give your life to God. I can't force you to give your life to Jesus. I can't force you to do anything. The only thing I can do as a youth pastor is give you an opportunity. To come up and receive prayer, to come up and confess your life to Jesus Christ, to come up and thank him for what he's done. So if you feel like you're stuck in a dark place right now, and you feel trapped, you feel like there's no way you can get out, I challenge you to come up to the altar right now.